everyone, Jono here. A lot has happened since the last time we did a single type challenge run. Last time we met, we successfully beat the game using a machine only deck. After that, I enlightened you with some trivia, then beat the game again on New Game Plus. In that process, I also dropped the rap, then went over to Twitch and watched Twitch chat beat both a Forbidden Memories randomizer and a Pokemon Crystal full key item randomizer. After that, I caught COVID for the first time, then, while still sick with COVID, proceeded to beat Forbidden Memories again without attacking. What a jam-packed 2 months. Anywho, let's go ahead and give an update to our type board. Now, a number of you have been requesting spellcasters for our next run. A large friggin' number of you. So, that's the type we're going to be hitting for this challenge. Setting aside the comments section, let's go over the spellcaster type. Spellcasters are a very splashable type in Forbidden Memories. There are a total of 57 spellcasters in this game, with 23 being available to the player in the starting deck, 23 unlockable as the story progresses, 2 available in the post-game, and 9 locked away behind the pocket station. No, your eyes are not playing tricks on you, those are Exodia's legs. Whilst the Forbidden one is currently legless, we can't abuse him in this run, but I'm sure that won't be a problem. Anywho, our starting deck looks like this. I'm not going to get too attached to the current setup, as I'm expecting to make progressive updates through the story as we go along. Quickly recapping the rules, we are now ready for this story to begin. After being defeated time and time again, Heishin scurries once more to the Forbidden Ruins, hoping to find the secret to ultimate power. In this timeline, our purple Pricktagonist stumbles upon something that will shake all 16 threads this 8-core universe is running on. Meanwhile, across the multiverse,
and the foot bone's connected to the leg bone, and the leg bone's connected to the hip bone, and the hip bone's connected to the cartwheel. Huh? Why isn't it working? You must have screwed something up. No, you must have screwed something up. Your mama screwed something up. My mother is attached to you, so therefore you screwed something up.
None of you tell Mirage Stalio any of this.
3, 2, 1, go!
uh-oh. People were in a panic all across the multiverse. Their magic, stolen by Pricktagonist Heishin, has brought their lives to a standstill. Back in Millennium Egypt, our hero has arrived in Metropolis, beginning his adventure as per normal, blissfully unaware of the terror that has been unleashed. We visit the palace to pay a visit to our good friend Simon, who we plan to beat the ever-loving crap out of in a duel. Welcome back to YuGiOh Forbidden Memories. We're playing with spellcasters this time. Spellcasters are overpowered as frick in the early portion of the game after Simon, so expect a good chunk of these duels to be over and done with quickly. And yes, I did say after Simon, and I'll get to that in a minute. Let's shine a little bit more detail into this type. Spellcasters are probably one of the most varied types within Forbidden Memories. They have a few spellcaster specific subtypes, and given that they're relatively humanoid creatures, flex across many of the other subtypes as well. Starting off with spellcasters themselves, there is a concept of dark spellcasters, light spellcasters, and I guess elves if you want to count them. How do you tell the difference between them? Well, a couple of ways. Starting off with elves, they are probably the most easiest to discern. They have the word elf in their name, and that's about it, which is a great segue into what we're about to do now. Defeating Simon and obtaining a mystery hand, we're actually going to save our game and exit out to free duel. What's this? We're grinding already? Yes peeps, and it is friggin' necessary. Blue Man Simon drops us one of the more coveted cards that we need in our Spellcaster run, that being Mystical Elf. Jump cutting back to Metropolis, we make our way to the duel ground and face off against Teana. She is a friggin' easy opponent, so we're just going to pick off where we left off in the last duel. The next two subtypes within Spellcasters are Dark Spellcasters and Light Spellcasters. Dark Spellcasters are usually identifiable via their Guardian Star, having Mercury as their primary sign. Light Spellcasters, on the other hand, usually have a Sun Guardian Star. And as for everything else that doesn't fit that mold, they don't belong to either, and likely either have another subtype attached to them, or are just pure spellcasters with no other attributes. So why is it important to know the difference between light and dark spellcasters? Well, reason numero uno, the equip cards for each are not compatible with each other. More on that in the next duel, because with our final attack with Dark Elf, Teana goes down and she drops us a swordsman from a foreign land. Throwing her to the side like a wet paper towel, we now face off against Villager 1, aka Giselle. Now, as I was saying before, the equip cards for each type are not compatible with each other. Checking the flavor text of each equip card will give you an indication as to what it is and isn't compatible with, alongside a bunch of trial and error. This is Forbidden Memories after all. Anywho, the second reason to know the difference between light and dark is for fusions. Specifically, the core fusion we'll be using this run, and that's Dark Elf, which I'm currently fusing into as we speak. Dark Elf is obtainable by fusing a Dark Spellcaster with an Elf. And what did we just get from Simon? That's right, a Mystical Elf. The only elf available to us until Yummi Bakura, unless we want to try our luck against Heishin 1. And speaking of luck, Villager 1 goes down. He drops us a Skull Servant, and all the duels thus far have been completed in one try. Moving on, we have Malai Ruka, aka Villager 2. With that quick overview of Spellcaster subtypes out of the way, let's get into the deck itself. For the starting part of the game, all the way up until, I'm going to say Meadow Mage, I have focused purely on using Dark Spellcasters and Elves to bring out Dark Elf, with the exception of a few Light Spellcaster females. Reason I've done this is to give me a larger pool of equip cards to pick from. By using the female subtype, I have access to Electro Whip and Cyber Shield, but also have more targets that are compatible with Malevolent Nuzzler for those spellcasters in the deck that are generic. Dark Elf is a great win condition, but I only have 3 elf targets for the time being. The rest of the deck isn't as powerful, so having a few more equips to splash is very desired. Speaking of equips, I have seen some comments asking me why I use such a large number of equips in the start of these runs. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I never fully planned this series out when I started it. I basically followed the format of the dinosaur video, and I'm too far in to change things up. As it sits, I'm leaving things as they are so we can have a pretty equal comparison at the end of the series. And also, it's how I played the game as a kid with 2 memory cards. Getting back to the duel, Villager 2 goes down, gives us the pot the trick, and we're up against Old Greg. This duel will probably go about the same as the rest, so let's go over the equip card compatibilities for spellcasters, since we're on that topic. Going in alphabetical order, Black Pendant works on Dark Spellcasters, Book of Secret Arts cannot be used on Dark Spellcasters, Dark Energy raises creatures of the dark, aka Dark Spellcasters, Elf's Light works on elves, and Malevolent Nuzzler works on dark monsters and females. The equips are skewed towards Dark Spellcasters, probably in favour of Dark Magician above all things. But enough of that. Old Greg goes down with a trusty Raigeki for the win, drops us an Akakisu, and we make our way to the Mage Festival. Despite the ominous discovery Heishin made in the Forbidden Ruins, the Mage Festival is proceeding as per normal. Glancing over to a random duel table, we see Jono getting his butt kicked by Seto1. Oh, by the way, our character's name in this video is called Wizard. Why? Because wizards rule. And because I'm still running around with a mage build in Elden Ring, with the exception of the final boss who I defeated with a big fat shield and a Scarlet Rot pokey stick. Anywho, we're on to Jono 1. With all that equip card knowledge shoved into your craniums from the earlier duel, let me explain to you how crucial Dark Elf is to this run. Dark Elf is compatible with 4 of those equip cards I mentioned earlier, as well as Electro Whip and Cyber Shield since it's a female. This grants us 6 equipped targets, without even counting Bright Castle or Megamorph, which brings our total up to 8. If this game didn't cap off at 9999, that brings her attack to 15,500. So, where can we get our hands on a Dark Elf outside of fusions? Seto3. With Jono 1 going down harder than Matilda's at the Olympics, he gives us a droll bird. As he wallows in inferiority, Seto1 walks into the duel grounds and challenges me to a duel. Given that we have access to a 2000 attack point beatstick, I think I'll need to start my trivia from now. Problem is, there are 57 cards to get through, far too many to fit into one video, especially at the rate I'm going through these duels. Like with the machine run, I'll cover off the trivia in its own video, and also include another run of the final 6 using a pocket station to unlock the 9 cards stuck behind it, as well as the last 2 available from Seto3. That will be a final 6 run with Cosmo Queen, Magician of Black Chaos, Dark Elf, and also all the pieces of Exodia. Get hyped for that when it eventually happens. Anywho, with all that explained, let's kick off the trivia, and the first card we'll be looking at is Nemoriko. Nemoriko debuted in The Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon in the TCG and has not been reprinted since. It has also made 0 anime appearances. Other European languages left this card name as Nemoriko, except Greece, who took its literal translation from Japan and called it Pedi Pukimate, aka Sleeping Child. Why did they rename it? I don't know. Probably didn't want a bunch of kids running around saying Nemori every 2 minutes. Anywho, Seto1 goes down, don't worry, there's no rap for this one, and we say Sampai Jumpa to our friends and head to the palace. Simon is sensing that something isn't right with the balance of this world, so he hops on a call with an expert to figure out what's going on. Suddenly, the smell of smoke wafts through the air, and he exits to find the palace on fire again. To nobody's surprise, it's the Pricktagonist, and it looks like he's met up with the Yellow Turbans and obtained the power of the Volcano Staff. Noping the frick out of this rebellion, we channel our inner Ichigo Kurosaki and throw Fizdus at Seto. Exiting the palace unscathed, Simon finally catches up with us after following directions from his expert counterpart. He hands us the Millennium Puzzle and tells us to run. After some more bad directions, we accidentally bump into Heishin, who challenges us to a duel instead of setting us on fire. This match will be a good test for our Spellcaster deck. This is the first deck that we've used thus far that has benefited from a Yami field, unless you count the no attack run. 2 equips in the first turn is a great start, we just have to hope that Heishin doesn't use any Megamorphs on his monsters. Drawing into our next hand, it's not anything spectacular. If all else fails, I'll dump my entire hand and just wait till I get a Dark Elf. And there we go. On this field, her attack starts off at 2500, meaning I only really need 2 equip cards to stand a chance against all of Heishin's heavy beaters. Anywho, Heishin is actually one of the opponents I'm hoping to farm from if we can pull off a win here. His BCD table has 2 cards that I'm after. The first is Spirit of the Mountain, a generic spellcaster with 1400 attack. Nothing game breaking, just something to fill up space for the tournament. The next card, however, is Gemini Elf, who only drops from Heishin and Heishin 2. I would really like this card. But enough of that, we drop a Raigeki for the win and attack for game with our Dark Elf. We win, Heishin goes down, and we sadly get a Violent Rain. No matter, given that this is the story mode, we can attempt this again and again till we drop a Gemini Elf, and if we can be bothered, a Spirit of the Mountain. While society waits in limbo as we grind against the villain, Simon takes matters into his own hands and suplexes him to the ground. Smashing the puzzle, we're sucked into the staircase dimension. Powerless to stop Heishin from growing stronger and stronger. Anywho, doom and gloom aside, we're back in the future and it's time for a YuGiOh tournament. According to the date, we're at the North American World Qualifying Playoffs. The winning deck, surprise surprise, was a Snake Eye deck. This time specifically, it was a Fiendsmith Snake Eye deck. Anywho, we're back at the card shop and it's time to update our deck. Nothing big changed, just swapped out the weaker monsters for the stronger. With all that aside, it's time to exit and take on Sex Raptor. The rest of these duels should be a cakewalk. Gemini Elf is a great alternative to Dark Elf, especially given that we have different Guardian Stars to play with. Her drawback, however, is that she isn't compatible with as many equip cards as her Dark counterpart. How do I fix this? Simple. Fuse her with a Dark Spellcaster to make Dark Elf. I crap you not, I will be doing this a lot more often than I'd like to admit. As for Spirit of the Mountain, retrospectively looking through the playthrough of this video, he's not all that great, especially for a card that only drops from Heishin and Heishin 2. Though it does have 1800 defense, it's only compatible with Elf's Light and Book of Secret Arts. I don't run either. Speaking of things no longer running, it's Rex. We defeated him in one try and he gave us his Tomosaurus. Returning to the card shop, we skip saving and head straight into Weevil. Most of the opponents from this point on are gonna be a cakewalk. So it's about this time that we kick up the trivia block for the next couple of duels until we reach the mages. Kicking things off, we have Necrolancer the Time Lord. Necrolancer the Time Lord appeared in Tournament Pack 8 as a common and has not been reprinted since. As for its anime appearances, there are none. And that's about all you need to know. I guess given its namesake, you could probably call this the first Time Lord card, despite the archetype not existing. But that of course is just sheer coincidence. Completely unrelated due to some Mandela effect, I kept thinking that this guy had hair. And I guess clothes for that matter. Anywho, Weevil goes down, he gives us a Turtle Tiger, and like Rex, he went down in one try. With Bug Boy out of the way, it's time for and time to continue more trivia. The next card we're going to be looking at is Genin. Genin debuted in the OCG in the starter box, and it has not been reprinted since. Genin was actually a fan-made card that eventually made its way to the video games and the TCG. It was part of a drawing contest, alongside a bunch of other cards over the years. Let me try get a photo of it up on screen. Sadly, I don't understand enough Japanese to translate what's underneath it, but there you go. Pretty like-for-like comparison. As for its anime appearances, Genin popped up in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's episode 118 and 119 in Yoshizu's deck during his turbo duel against Jack. And I guess by extension, he also showed the card to Yusei in the prior episode. Anywho, that's all for the Genin trivia. Getting back to the duel, we lay our final attack with Lady of Faith and Mai goes down. She drops us a Mystic Horseman. And this, like all the rest, was a one attempt victory. Skipping the save, we go up against Banded Keith. Again, not much to say in terms of difficulty, so we're going to resume the trivia. The next card on our trivia list is Lamoon. Lamoon debuted in the OCG in Booster Pack 3 and has not been reprinted since, except within the Rush Duel format. And there you go, added bonus, it got a HD remaster in its card artwork. The card itself has two counterparts / retrain. The first counterpart is Dark Witch, ironically a fairy type monster. And its retrain is Bubble Era 1 length Lamoon, seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. Lamoon itself, however, has not had any anime appearances. The card artwork for Lamoon has been censored for its international release, very minor, but her tube dress was converted to a backlist to cover her neck, and her bust size has been shrunk down. A little excessive, I mean, given that you literally have My Valentine in the anime, but I digress. Getting back to the duel, we're on to our last turn. With 100 life points left, it doesn't matter what Bandit Keith summons against us. But for the ha-has, I drop a Raigeki for the win and attack for game with Dark Elf. We win a Yami, very handy, and we did this in one try. It's about that time again, we're up to a Shadi Cutscene. Despite being an incorporeal being whose existence is purely based on magic, Shadi seems to have been unaffected by Pricktagonist Heishin's magic siphoning effects. Let's get the scatter out on this one. Aha, there's the problem. Shadi in this universe is a pushover of a duelist. Tough break, buddy. I guess it seems you're the top half of the loaf of bread. Everybody's touching you, but nobody wants you. Talking to our past self, we're informed of the terrifying power Heishin has acquired. Looking to put a stop to things, we're asked to lend him $20 for an Uber back to Egypt. Unfortunately, we're a minor, and have little access to funds. So we're going to resort to petty theft to pay his expenses. Don't worry, I read up on this. This is how teenagers in Queensland get around without repercussions from the law. Speaking of people who get around, it's time to duel Shadi. Drawing into our first hand, unfortunately, we brick. Dumping our hand, we pass the turn back over to Shadi, leaving a Witch of the Black Forest in attack mode. Shadi proceeds to do something unprecedented. He summons a monster over 1500 attack. I have never seen this before in any of my playthroughs. Brick in the second hand, we summon a Lady of Faith and hit over it with a Guardian Star Burst, which is enough to quell any offensive capability Shadi seems to have. Fusing into a Dark Elf, we're back where we need to be. So let's move on to the trivia. The card we're looking at this time is Lucky Trinket. Lucky Trinket appeared in the OCG as part of Booster Pack 1 and has not been reprinted since. As for its anime appearances, it appeared in episode 34 of YuGiOh GX during Kaibaman's duel against Jaden. Having that timed perfectly, we defeat Shadi and he gives us a Melting Red Shadow. Stealing his possessions, we head back to the card shop and save our game. Or I guess not. Anywho, our next opponent is Yummi Bakura, who is actually going to be our next grind target. He is annoyingly friggin' defensive, and can drop both a Millennium Shield and a Labyrinth Wall, stalling you out of an A rank if you're unlucky. Yummi Bakura's drop table is chock full of a crap ton of spellcasters, 5 of which I'm looking to add to our collection. You have access to a fair amount of spellcasters in his BCD table, but the ones we're targeting with the higher attack points are only available if you SA rank him. A ranking gets a lot easier having Gemini Elf in our deck. Because this current build is focused on getting out Dark Elf, we're using a lot of fusions and a lot of equip cards. This lowers your duel score, pushing you closer to a tech rank rather than a power rank. This is something new players often neglect to realise when they're trying to aim for those higher ranks. For new players, if you get stuck, go pull up a dual rank calculator. It makes the process a heck of a lot easier. Speaking of easy, Yummi Bakura goes down and drops us a Necrolancer the Time Lord. Unfortunately, it's not one of the cards we're targeting. Oh well. I was inclined to jump to free duel from this point on and grind for the cards that Yummi dropped, but I think we're strong enough to take on the rest of the tournament and get them later, seeing as we're going to change our deck again by the time we reach Meadow Mage. Getting back to the tournament, our next opponent is Pegasus. With another retrospective look into my deck, Spirit of the Mountain is actually more of a hindrance than a benefit to us. Reaching Yummi and Pegasus onwards, you're dealing with 2000 attack monsters. A 1300 attack monster with 1 equip card is only going to reach 1800. A bit of a wasted effort. In hindsight, I would have swapped him in for more females. But never mind that. We're on to our last turn of the game. Ignoring what Pegasus has dropped, we summon a Gemini Elf and attack Meteor Dragon. Landing the final hit with Mystical Elf, Peggy Boy goes down. He drops us an Oslo Hero 2, and we did this in 1 try. Popping out the bloke's eyeball, we leg it and head back to the card shop. Skipping the save once more, our next opponent is a Shizu. Time to resume the card trivia, and the next card on the list we're going to look at is Rogue Doll. Rogue Doll appeared in starter deck Kaiba, and was later reprinted in the Speed Duel starter decks and the event deck. For its anime appearances, it appeared in episode 72 during the duel between Luminous and Umbra against Yugi and Kaiba. And I guess by extension, it also appeared in flashbacks of YuGiOh GX when Hasselberry recollected that duel on the rooftop. As for the manga, it appeared in a bit of a different sequence, popping up in episode 2, summoned by Pegasus in that TV duel, which I think is chapter 63 or 64, I can't remember. And I'm also too lazy to check on the wikis. Anywho, getting back to the last turn of the duel, we drop a Raigeki for the win and attack for game with our Dark Elves. We win. Ishizu goes down and she drops us a Zone Eater. And we did this in 1 try. Stealing her necklace, we make our way to the card shop and prep up for the final duel of the tournament. And it's against Kaiba. Our only threat with Kaiba is his Blue Eyes White Dragon and his back row, if he ever decides to use either of those. So, while we wait for that to happen, time for some more trivia for those pink noodles in your skull. And the card we're looking at this time is Dryad. Or is it Doriado? There's the first bit of trivia right there. Forbidden Memories and many of the earlier games referred to this card as Dryad, as they were directly translating the Japanese spelling. When localizing this to English, I suspect the spelling changed to Doriado to reflect how it was phonetically spoken in Japanese. Dryado. Unfortunately, I cannot find many details on that. Dryado has 3 counterparts, those being Lady of Faith, Elemental Mistress Doriado, and Dark Doriado. You can possibly count Shadow Priestess of Ohm, since it's a counterpart of Lady of Faith. The card has no anime appearances and will stop things there. Because Kaiba has been defeated, we sell off and launder all the ill-gotten gains, and we give our protagonist $20 to head back to Egypt. Crossing back to our lives in the puzzle, we have no idea how long we've been there. Hopefully it's not too late to put a stop to Heishin and all of his high mages. Fading to white, we return to the Shrine of Glory, which is used for absolutely nothing in this game. It was a colossal waste of time even programming in that asset. They could have just dropped you in Metropolis and let the story progress as per normal. Anywho, we visit our friends at the duel ground, but before we challenge either Jono 2 or Teana, we're going to jump cut out to free duel. We grind against Yummi Bakura until he drops us an Ancient Elf, a Dryad, Lamoon, Leo Wizard, and Ragdoll. Our deck looks like this. Wondering why there's nothing on screen? Guess which idiot forgot to record what the deck looked like? That's right, me. I'll have to explain what we did as we duel Jono 2. The deck is going to get replaced very quickly when we face off against Meadow Mage. But for now, 3 copies of Ancient Elf were added to the deck, as well as 3 copies of Leo Wizard, replacing any of the weaker Dark Spellcasters. We now have 3 targets for Dark Elf. As for everything else, we added in Lamoon so we have more female spellcaster targets, swapped out Spirit of the Mountain for Ragdoll, and I believe swapped out some Lady of Faiths with Dryads. The rest of the deck remains relatively unchanged. We didn't need to upgrade our deck for these next few opponents, it was strong enough as it is. However, when we eventually grind against Meadow Mage, we're going to be targeting the A power ranks, so having some slightly stronger monsters is actually going to make things easier for us. Speaking of easy, Jono 2 goes down and he drops us a Pot the Trick. Wasting little to no time, we face off against Teana 2. Teena's strongest monster is Orion, capping off at 1800 attack. So we're going to jump straight back into the trivia. And the next non-mainstream card on our list is Ill Witch. Ill Witch debuted in Booster Pack 6 in the OCG and has not been reprinted since. The card itself has one counterpart, that being Water Element. As for the card artwork itself, it was censored for this game's international release. Clothing was added to the Naked Witch. The card has made no anime appearances and I have no idea what illness this witch has. And I also have no idea why they called her Ill Witch instead of Siren. Seriously, who are you going to offend with that name? Zeus? Anywho, that's all for the trivia on that card. Teana drops us a Dancing Elf, which we unfortunately cannot use, since it's a fairy. And we exit the duel grounds to pay a visit to Sidin, and probably show you the only on-screen game save of this run. Trudging across the lands, we come across the King's Valley. Sidin emerges from under a rock like the TMU version of Golem, except this guy has no idea where to take us. Looks like in this universe we still have to do everything ourselves. Heading back to the palace ruins, we're confronted by a Mage Soldier, who challenges us to a duel. Mage Soldier's only threat is fusing into a twin-headed Thunder Dragon against us. You know the drill, more trivia. And the next card we're looking at this time is Ancient Elf. Ancient Elf debuted in the TCG in Metal Raiders, and I guess in Starter Deck Yugi if you're from North America, and has not been reprinted since. As for its anime appearances, it appeared in episode 102 in Teia's duel against Crump. In YuGiOh Forbidden Memories, Ancient Elf is shown on a poster in the background of the card shop in the World Tournament. Other than that, there isn't much else. In the TCG, Ancient Elf is one of the fusion materials needed to summon out Mystical Sand, the other being Stone Ogre Grotto. And that's about all there is to know. Getting to our last turn, Mage Soldier summons nothing of note, and we attack into it with our Dark Elf. Defeating his weather report, we attack for game with Mystical Elf. Mage Soldier goes down and he drops us a Jellyfish. With our opponent out of the way, we pick up the map conveniently left right next to us and return back to Sidin. Sidin escorts us to the Forbidden Ruins, the place where this universe went to the absolute crap house. Tailing us in was Seto, who informs us that Heishin has imbued all his mages with powers he stole across the multiverse. It looks like we'll have our work cut out for us this time. Seto vanishes like the rat that he is, so we're gonna knuckle down and head over to the Meadow Shrine. Until next time, Sidin. Making a beeline for the Meadow Shrine, we face off against this sentient gazebo. Low Meadow Mage is our second last grind target. The 2 cards we're aiming for are Dark Magician and Skull Knight. Dark Magician is friggin' fantastic. Aside from it having a solid offense, it has a Mercury Guardian Star, being a Dark Spellcaster. This means I only need 3 equip cards to tie with a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, since it gets plus 500 in the Mercury Sun matchup. Very cool Dark Magic Ian, very cool. It does, however, have a minor drawback. Dark Magician is male, meaning that it loses out on most of the Dark Elf's equip cards other than Black Pendant and Dark Energy. Though with access to Megamorph and Bright Castle for the final 6, which we'll grind for later, this more than makes up for it. Skull Knight on the other hand is a beast of a monster. This thing is a magnet for equip cards, being compatible with 11 of them. On a boosted Yummi field, this guy hits over Labyrinth Wall and Millennium Shield equipless, which is handy as frick. It too is also a Mercury Spellcaster, but unlike Dark Magician, it can actually defeat a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon after 3 equipped cards, instead of just tying with it. We are definitely going to take advantage of that one later. And speaking of things taken advantage of, low Meadow Mage goes down after a hit from Dark Elf. He drops us a White Dolphin and we achieve victory in one try. Ke-Papu-Pura has landed himself Ke-Papu-Pu's power, amassing an army of mini bandicoots behind him. Not being strong enough to throw a crate at him, we instead challenge him to a duel. We're running a gamble challenging Ke-Papu-Pura as is. We could have easily bounced out after Meadow Mage and farmed the necessary cards. I do however have some confidence that our deck can hit over Gate Guardian if we draw the right equips. As a plan B, I could always use Mystical Elf, which only needs 4 to survive, if I can hold off long enough that is. However, judging by the way this duel is going, it doesn't seem like I need to go down that route. Since he summoned the 1000 Dragon, safe to say he bricked. And with a Raigeki in hand, it is safe to say this duel is over in the next 2 turns. That'll be the hardest mage down. Her friggin' ray for that. Summoning out a monster and passing the turn back to us, we pop off a Raigeki for the win, and attack once with Dark Elf, and attack twice with Dark Elf. We win. Ke-Papu-Pura goes down and he gives us a Mech-Bass. Defeating Ke-Papu-Pura has released the captive magic and returned it to its rightful universe. Speaking of magic, we need to stock up on some. Off to the free duels we go. A ranking the Meadow Mage nets us a Dark Magician and a Skull Knight. And that's more than enough for now. Back in the overworld, we're going to follow a circle and challenge the Forest Shrine. Now, I could have actually grinded for one other strong card, but I'll leave that just before the final 6. I'll do it when I sweep through to pick up Megamorph and Bright Castle. Its drop is a 0.2% chance and I am not looking forward to it. Anywho, my current hand has bricked. So, whilst we sit there and unclog it, let's go over some more trivia. The card we're going over this time is Rock Spirit. Not to be confused with the Rock Spirit. Rock Spirit is an OCG card that debuted in Booster Pack 6 and has not been reprinted since. If it wasn't already obvious, Rock Spirit is a counterpart to the card Haniwa, and like all counterparts, it shares the same 3D animation in Forbidden Memories, albeit recolored to red. As for how you obtain it in Forbidden Memories, it drops from Seto3, so you will not see this card in our current playthrough, unless we drop it by fluke in the final 6. And that's about all there is to know. We fire off a Raigeki for the win, and attack for game with Dark Magician. We win. Forest Mage goes down and he drops us a Kage Ningen. On to High Mage Anubisius. Anubisius has been boosted by the life force of Grindel from Shifting Sands Land. This power has granted him the ability to make facial expressions. Truly a cursed power indeed. We must stop him at all costs. In a bout of goldfish energy stupidity, I have forgotten once more to record what the heck this deck looks like. Going from memory, all 3 Rogue Dolls would have been kicked out for Skull Knight, and I would have simply reduced the quantity of other useless cards for Dark Magician. Anywho, with both those cards in our deck, it basically trivializes the rest of these encounters. We still need to worry about monsters over 3000 attack, so bricking a hand is going to be a problem for us with our current setup. But enough of that, we're on to the last turn of the duel. Attacking for game with Dark Elf, Anubisius goes down and he grants us a Winged Dragon. Defeating Anubisius has released the captive magic and returned it to its rightful universe. Speaking of things held captive, it's time to kick off the Seto2 encounter. Returning to the duel grounds, Teana's been captured, so we book it to the Vast Shrine. Entering the Labyrinth, we're confronted by the Labyrinth Mage, who has not been strengthened by any magic power from Heishin. He's just a guy in this playthrough.
Just a guy?
Uh-oh, cancel culture is back. I guess this is where this playthrough draws the line. I can go ahead and call Shadi a pushover of a duelist and compare him to the top half of a loaf of bread, but Ra forgive me if I decide to call someone a guy. Anywho, I'm sure it will all blow over by the end of this duel. And speaking of, drawing into our last hand, we power up a Gemini Elf, attack his face down, which is a Great Mammoth of Goldfine, attack once with Skull Knight, and attack for game with Dark Magician. We win. Victory is ours and Labyrinth Mage drops us a Masked Sorcerer. See, what did I tell you? Everything has blown over.
It's been 24 hours since John's infamous "just a guy" comment shook the very foundation of our fair village. I'm here now with an angry mob. John barged in and called Mike just a guy, as if to say he was so much better than the rest of us. We begged him to stop, but he just kept berating the poor fella.
He's lost touch with the common man. Can you believe that guy? I mean, the nerve of some people.
Challenged to a duel by the angry mob, it's time to get back on track with things. I dump a few cards out of my starting hand whilst I wait for more equipped cards. I'll need at least 1 or 2 for Dark Magician. Passing the turn back to Seto, he summons out a Blue Peeps Honky Dragon. If you're gonna play like that, it's time to fight fire with fire. Boosting up a Dark Magician with a black pendant, we set it to a Mercury Guardian Star and kick off the battle. Using an Int Faith build, we take out Glintstone Dragon Smorag. Passing the turn back to us, we semi-brick a hand, so we decide to just set a Mystical Elf and begin wiping out his field. Whilst we secure our victory, let me pop off a real quick bit of trivia. Which is what I would say if that hadn't happened. Uh-oh. Thankfully, we have a Skull Knight, so I'm going to beef the field to Yummi and cop a bit of a hit to the life points in hope that I draw something that can out me from this. Thankfully, as always, we draw a Raigeki. As a plan B, I would have had to have held out for some equipped cards, and oh geez, this is not good either. Thankfully, Seto does not have a tremendous fire in his deck, otherwise it would have been a guaranteed game over right there. Summoning out a Skull Knight in a Mercury sign, we take out the problematic dragon, and hope that he doesn't drop another Gate Guardian. Drawing into another Skull Knight, we beef it up and drop it on the field. Again, crossing our fingers that he doesn't summon another Gate Guardian. Passing the turn back to Seto, he summons and it's a Neptune. Yep, Sea King Dragon, we've got this. Fusing out a Dark Elf, we power it up for absolutely no reason and attack into his face down. Stand corrected, it was an Aqua Dragon. Regardless, we attack the game with Skull Knight, Seto2 goes down and gives us a Punished Eagle. With this intermission out of the way, we exit back out to Metropolis. Bidding farewell to our friends for the final time, it's time to resume the mage hunt. Moving to the right, the next shrine on our hit list is the Desert Shrine. Can you hit over a monster with 2700 attack? If your answer is yes, congratulations, you have defeated both Low Mage and Martis, unless you end up getting Labyrinth Walled. Hoping that it doesn't come to that, I'm going to jump right back into the trivia. The next card on the list is Maiden of the Moonlight. Maiden of the Moonlight debuted in the TCG in Tournament Pack 2 and has not been reprinted since at the time of making this video. The monster itself is a counterpart to Luna Queen Elzame and potentially has a retrain in the Infinite Forbidden pack. In Forbidden Memories, though this card is not a Dark Spellcaster, it can be used as material to fuse into a Dark Elf. I suspect this is due to the Moon Guardian Star, else all the equipped cards compatible with it classify this as a generic Spellcaster. Oh, and being a winged monster card, you can fuse it with Machine Conversion Factory for it to become a Harpy's Feather Duster. That's all from me. Lower Mage goes down, gifts us a twin-headed King Rex, and we're on our way to Martis. All the pyromancy and bone wheels in the background indicate to me that Heishin has imbued Martis with Pinwheel's magic, purposely training him wrong as a joke. We decide to challenge old Maskface here to put him out of his misery. Look at that for a first hand. Turn 1 and we already have a monster over 2700 attack. We have already won. Based on how short this duel is going to be, I don't even have time to cover off any trivia. Summoning out a boosted Skull Knight, we attack into his face down Dark Magician and then hit him directly with our Gemini Elf. Passing the turn back to him, he does nothing, so we fuse into a Dark Elf and power up with an Electro Whip. Taking care of his face down monsters, none of which have been boosted by Wasteland, we attack him directly with Dark Elf and again for game with Gemini Elf. We win. We obtain a supporter in the shadows, and with Martis defeated, he has released the captive magic back to its rightful universe. Hope it reaches Pinwheel in time. Anywho, the next shrine on our list is the Sea Shrine, and we're up against the Ocean Mage. As I play through these challenges, I never really take much time to consider what the secondary Guardian Star is to almost all my monsters, unless I need it as an out for a particular scenario. Witch of the Black Forest has a second sign of Pluto. That means she'll get a plus 500 boost against all the Neptune monsters summoned against us. I'll be sure to keep that in mind for later playthroughs. But for now, we are beating the ever-loving crap out of the lower mage, so there's really no point in jumping to the trivia. Summoning out a boosted Dark Magician, we take care of his face down and then attack for game with Dark Magician and with Skull Knight. We win. Ocean goes down and he drops us a Kanikabuto. Secmeton D's Nuts has frozen all water in his shrine after obtaining the freezing ability from Pegasus Magic GX. How the magic from a battle chip converted to real life ability, I'll never know. But it wouldn't be a Yu-Gi-Oh game if at least one thing didn't make sense. Secmeton's strongest card is a boosted twin-headed Thunder Dragon at 3300 attack. Changing the field should negate that boost. So, with that said, let's go back to the trivia, and this time we're looking at the card Leo Wizard. Leo Wizard debuted in the OCG as part of Booster Pack 3, and was reprinted in Booster R2. Leo Wizard as a monster is a counterpart to Sleeping Lion, albeit with an obvious recolor. The reason why a lion is a spellcaster is due to its flavor text, which reads, a mysterious magician that cloaks itself with a black cape and identifies as a talking lion beast. Dancing lion, eat your heart out. Anywho, dropping a Raigeki for the win, we attack for game with Skull Knight. Secmeton goes down, giving us a Genine, and the stolen ice magic makes its way back to the Starforce universe via EM waves. Moving on to our final shrine, we're up against the Mountain Mage. There wasn't enough magic in this universe to shrink this guy's ginormous chin. Appearance shaming aside, we move on to the duel. Chin Mage's strongest cards are either a fused twin-headed Thunder Dragon or a Crimson Sunbird, so we need to hit over 2800 attack at minimum. We currently do not do that, hence why we got punished by his eagle. Bricking our second draw, we're just going to have to risk it and summon out Skull Knight, who hits over Punished Eagle by 50 attack points. Whilst the rest of the duel plays out, I'll jump back onto the trivia. The next card on the list we're going to look at is Tau the Chanter. Tau the Chanter debuted in Volume 4 in the OCG and has not been reprinted since. The card has no anime appearances and honestly no other trivia of note. Clutching at straws, its Japanese name translates to Tau the Exorcist, which was likely changed to the Chanter for the worldwide release. And that's about all I got. Mountain Mage finally goes down, he drops us a swordsman from a foreign land, and we're up against a Tenza. A Tenza has obtained the magic psychic ability of telekinesis. He now has the ability to pick things up from a distance, which is probably very handy for him given that he lives so far up the mountain. Storyline aside, a Tenza is the second strongest mage in Forbidden Memories. Several of his monsters are going to be hitting over 3000 attack, so we need to prepare ourselves accordingly. And judging by the first, he seems to have potentially bricked, given that it was Thousand Dragon and not anything intimidating. So we won't look this gift horse in the mouth and continue the trivia. And the next card on our list is Hurricane. Hurricane debuted in the OCG in Booster Pack 1 and was re-released in Booster R1. The card has had one anime appearance, in episode 164. Ironheart throws All-Seeing White Tiger and Hurricane at two monsters that were blocking him from getting to Yami Yugi. And that's about it in terms of its anime appearances. Looking at the card itself, don't ask me how a Hurricane is a spellcaster, I do not know. I'm just going to classify it as an elemental and call it a day. Speaking of calling things a day, we're on to our final turn of the duel. Popping off a Raigeki for the win, we attack the game with Skull Knight. We win a Castle of Dark Illusions, and Atenza's magic has been released back to its rightful universe. Seto pops up to inform us how to beat the game before vanishing out of existence. Cheers buddy. With all the mages down, it's time for our final set of grinding. Jumping to free duel, we S-Tech Pegasus until he drops us a Bright Castle and a Megamorph, slap them into our deck and bang our head against Heishin till he drops us a Kaiserjin. Remember, 0.2% chance. Anywho, our final deck looks like this. The equip cards have been swapped around for the top 3 strongest monsters, and we have condensed the engine for Dark Elf. Back to the story we go. Back in Metropolis, we enter the vast shrine, skip literally everything, including Seto, and face off against our first two opponents, Sebek and Neku, who, ever so conveniently, challenge us using a Yami field. The secret to beating both Sebek and Neku is 2 words, Skull Knight. That's it. That monster is the strongest card in both of their decks. So long as I summon it, I win the duel. So, all that's left to do is show off all the kick-ass battle animations of my ace spellcaster monsters. starting with Gemini Elf. Axel dancing away Metal Zoa like a pair of androids, we attack Sebek directly with Skull Knight, and watch as he flowers in vain as we draw enough Kazajins to make a triple nutsack. It's time for a teabag, big guy. Dealing away with his regular Zoa, we attack the game with Gemini Elf. We win. Sebek goes down, gives us a blue-eye silver zombie, and we're on to Neku. Same strategy as before, summon a Skull Knight and win. As mentioned during the Sebek duel, the goal is to showcase the 3D battle animations of our ace monsters. Thus far, you've seen Kazajin and you've seen Gemini Elf. Next up, given the hand we just drew, is Skull Knight, who you've probably seen more than enough times from my prior videos. Exploding into a bajillion pieces, we attack again with Kazajin and pass the turn back to Neku. Drawing up our next hand, it looks like all we have available to us is a Dark Elf. Let's hope that we can hit over whatever this is for our 3D battle. Unleashing Prince's Purple Rain against an evil clown, we attack the game with Kazajin. We win. Neku gives us a Dark Prisoner. Ending the slave trade and defeating Birdman, we are now up to Pricktagonist Heishin 2, who appears to have ditched the Zhangjiao outfit in favour of the Eggplant staff. Heishin 2 as an opponent is a bit of a dice roll. You could have a real easy time, or you could have a real tough time. In terms of his back row, we have to watch out for Raigeki and Widespread Ruin. Alternatively, he may turn the tides with a trusty Megamorph. Given that he's put down a face-down moon monster, I can only assume it's a Wall Shadow. Oh, Labyrinth Tank. Well, he bricked to the ever-loving crap house. If you look at the deck composition odds, you can see how badly of a hand he pulled. But enough of that, we attack the game and Pricktagonist Heishin II goes down. In his defeat, we have released all the stolen magic that Heishin has accumulated throughout his travels. Looking to continue the villain arc of this story, Seto3 picks up a rod. Retreating to the back of the shrine, Seto3 is blissfully unaware that we have returned all the stolen magic back to the inhabitants. Thinking he has a one-up on us, he re-attempts to summon forth the Dark Knight. Let the duel against Seto3 commence. Drawing into our hand, we have practically bricked. Having 2 Raigeki, however, is a really good out, but it puts us on the back foot. He summons out one of 3 ultimate dragons and hits my life points. Clearing it away with a Raigeki, we hope that he doesn't summon forth another. And Twin Head. Friggin' great for us. We draw into a Dark Energy, which is enough to have Dark Magician hit over it, and his subsequent cards should also be equally weak, if not weaker, unless we get unlucky and he top decks a problem. Boosting up a Skull Knight, we attack into his face down, which turns out to be a Guy the Dragon Champion. There we go. Even weaker than Twin Head. It doesn't matter what he summons this time, because we pop off a Raigeki for the win and attack the game with Dark Magician and lastly with Skull Knight. We win. Seto3 goes down and he also drops us a Dark Prisoner. I heard if we get a third one, Kim Kardashian will appear as our lawyer. References to the Kardashians aside, Heishin whips out his old reliable, being fed up that every bit of magic he's accumulated has gone to waste. With the remaining bit of sorcery available to him, he places the Millennium items inside the sarcophagus and brings forth Dark Knight. Thoroughly agitated that Heishin didn't attempt to revive him first before obtaining all the ill-gotten magic, Dark Knight sends Heishin to the corner to think about what he's done. Turning his sights on us, he tries to take matters into his own hands before realizing who the heck he's dealing with. When all else fails, it's time to duel. Drawing into our first hand, we bricked. I'm going to set a Dark Energy instead of a Megamorph to bait out a Feather Duster. And he does not take the bait. There's a chance that whatever card is down there is a reverse trap, however, I'm just going to risk it for the biscuit and hope for the best. No reverse trap, we're good. We are not going to attack in the event that it is a detrimental trap, so instead, I'm going to summon out a Leo Wizard to bait out whatever trap that might be. If I'm right, it should be a Widespread Ruin. Yup, of course it is. Attacking into his face down Cosmo Queen, we pass the turn back to him. He summons out another Cosmo Queen, so we're going to beef up our Gemini Elf to hit over it. 2 equip cards should be enough to take it out. A slight hindering factor is that Cosmo Queen is a Venus. That is strong against all Mercury spellcasters, so I need to keep that in mind. Regardless, it won't matter. We drop a Raigeki and attack for game with Skull Knight. We win. He drops us a Neck Hunter, and then proceeds to twist and contort into the nightmare we see before us. It's time for our final duel. Now, I left a little surprise in this deck in the lead up to the fight against Nightmare. Some of you keen viewers may have already noticed it. For now, we're going to set a Megamorph given that we bricked our hand and cop a hit from his Ultimate Dragon. Beefing up a Witch of the Black Forest, which is literally the only card we have available to us right now, we somehow miraculously power up this thing to hit over a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon because of its Guardian Star. Time for a 3D battle. Hitting Placidusax with a Frenzied Burst, we pass the turn back to Nightmare, who summons down a Meteor Black Dragon. Dumping the rest of our hand, I'm currently looking for our final win condition. Summoning a Skull Knight, we take out Meteor Black with Witch of the Black Forest and hit his life points for 3150. In retaliation, Nightmare summons out a Cosmo Queen who hits over my Dark Knight due to its Guardian Star. Nearing the end of our setup, I pop off a Raigeki and hit his life points till he's left with just 50. Passing the turn back to him, he sets down a Black Skull Dragon, and we still haven't drawn into the card we're looking for, so I'm just going to dump my hand. Yes, I know, I screwed up and didn't use the right card there, but it's okay. Passing the turn back to us, we finally got what we were looking for. Right Arm of the Forbidden One. Why were we looking for this card? Very simple. Nightmare was insistent on a Fiston, and I was not here to disappoint. Popping off a Raigeki for the win, we slap him upside the head for 200. Our final enemy goes down. Ah, here they are, just in time. I'm going to pass this next bit over to Reimu and Marissa, who are less than thrilled about having their magic stolen. Maidens, take it away. Fading to dust, Nightmare disappears to wherever the hell he goes after this game, and we sit atop our throne like the king that we are. So, can you beat YuGiOh Forbidden Memories with a Spellcaster deck? Yes, yes you can, with 0 losses too. time for the run wrap up. The campaign took us a total of 38 duels to complete, incurring 0 losses throughout the run. We ran up 305 duels in free mode, you can thank Kazagen for that one, bringing our total duel count to 343. The average campaign duel duration was 2 minutes and 4 seconds, bringing the total campaign to 1 hour and 18 minutes approximately. In terms of rank, this deck sits just behind Pocket Station Insects, making it the strongest vanilla deck we've used thus far. Hey everyone, Jono here. Thank you all so much for making it to the end of this video. Apologies that this one took so long to make. Work and fatherhood has really ramped up these past few months, not giving me much time to churn these out. Before I sign off, I want to give a massive shout out to my YouTube supporters, Wizards First Rule 57, I Love Cats 3807, Stephen Hafner 7686, and Kalut 731. To the Twitch community, have not forgotten you guys and gals. A massive thank you to Shanna Hart 33, Mattios UK, Duck Adder 69, Rancid Fever, Ranger Phantasma, Alexis Bexus, Toasty Boy, Huffman 880, Celadonia Smurf, Flowmax 840, Spartan Lyra, Peggy 2G for you, Lol Manboss, Zikro 5, Dark Shadow 2, and Cam Tomo. That was a mouthful, all that in one breath. Anywho, I will be making a part 2 of this video where I challenge the final 6 with the Pocket Station variant of this deck and also cover off all the missed trivia from this run. To not miss out on that, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to stay notified of its release. And as always, stay awesome people. Hope you all draw a Raigeki for the win, and I'll be seeing you all soon.